Okay, we are back. This is the third time, so hopefully the third time is the charm here. And I've been trying to create this recording. Um, so the title of this is I'm just going to give a brief, I hope it's brief, no more than 10-minute commentary on this particular topic. Dear Morehouse, dear Morehouse, I understand your dilemma. Really. I understand the dilemma that a lot of students and faculty face with having the President of the United States come and give the commencement speech, given his timid response to the situation in Gaza, to the Prime Minister, Netanyahu. I understand that. I get it. I'm not happy with the Biden administration's timid response on this. They've been incredibly timid and very passive to my way of thinking. But I think, Morehouse, you all have to walk a fine line here. You are an elite school, but you don't have the endowments that many elite Ivies and other private big universities enjoy. You have clearly a prominent history with prominent graduates who've gone on to do big and wonderful things, and they have given back to Morehouse, but you just don't have that kind of endowment. So, in my humble opinion, I think it's a fine line that you have to walk here between saying, okay, we don't want the President of the United States coming here for his reason, for not standing up more for Gaza, not putting out strong statements in support of Gaza. I get it. And at the same time, it's a fine line to walk because even though you're a private school, you still get federal funding, right? And you just don't have the endowments that the other schools enjoy. So at the end of the day, I get that activism in particular is part of not just the Morehouse experience, but part of HBCUs in general. We can say that about all HBCUs in general. Activism plays a big role, and it is one of the founding tenets, yeah, of HBCUs, in my opinion. But at the same time, you have to look at how this looks. And Biden barely won Georgia almost 4 years ago. Will he win it this time? Who knows? Likelihood is not. I don't know. He has to appeal to younger African Americans for sure. The distinguished young men who are graduating from Morehouse. Many who may be on the fence, like other young people in general, about voting for him. And yet, you look at a person like Donald Trump, whose sole interest in running and winning is to pardon himself. If you can listen to any of his speeches, he doesn't talk about what he's going to do for you all. He doesn't talk about that at all. He just talks. And yes, you can say the same thing about Biden to a certain degree, but that administration has made an effort to do some things, and some things I think they are getting right. For example, the student loan forgiveness. They are getting that right. Let me dispel the myth that um, Republicans and others have about people who receive this student loan forgiveness. The people who are receiving the student loan forgiveness, the system is so messed up in DC on so many different levels, but as it pertains to education, a lot of these student loans fell under the public service forgiveness. And for some reason or another, when people applied for that, it didn't happen because it was buried in all this bureaucracy going on here. So people who are getting student loan forgiveness at this particular point are people who have paid on their student loans for over 25 years or more. Okay, think about it for a minute. If you went to college as an undergraduate in the late 90s, early 2000s, or you earned a graduate degree during that time period and you borrowed, I don't know, $25,000, well, it should have been paid off by now at any rate. But actually what happened, because I have a lot of friends who fell into this situation, that $25,000 turned into $75,000 from people who consistently paid and paid and paid and paid and paid. So consequently, the Biden administration came in and said, wait a minute, these people have been paying on these student loans for over 25 years. So we've got to do something about it. And it made sense to forgive it. If you think about borrowing $25,000 from the bank, no bank is going to finance a $25,000 loan for 25 or 30 years. But with the interest rate of 8%, which is what was set by the Department of Education years ago in DC, there just wasn't any hope of people being able to pay off those student loans, especially if they were backed by the federal government. In addition to, they couldn't file bankruptcy. If they filed bankruptcy, they couldn't include those loans in bankruptcy. And also, something else I wanted to say about that. Yeah, the loans couldn't be included in bankruptcy because it was a federal student loan. The interest rate couldn't change because 8% is 8%. Now, anybody who's buying a house these days, you can see the interest rate 7, 8%. Good luck with that, because 8%, 7%, that guarantees that you will not see movement in terms of the balance. So what happened with a lot of these student loans is that instead of going down, they went up. You had to be making significant, have a significant income in order to see it go down. And that just wasn't the case. So contrary to popular opinion, people who paid 25, 30, 35 years in some cases on these loans, they deserve to have them forgiven. I've derailed a little bit. So, but that is a concrete example for young people to see that, because a lot of them are graduating in debt. A lot of them won't be able to go to law school, dentist, medical school, or graduate school, which I don't really recommend unless you're in the STEM, unless you're doing STEM anyway. But a lot of people won't be able to do that because their undergraduate debt is very high. So I think the Biden administration needs to do more to appeal to people in that regard. But getting back to Morehouse and the uneasiness expressed by some students and some faculty about him coming at all to give a commencement speech, given his timid response, and some would say no response really to what's going on in Gaza or to Netanyahu's actions. They don't want him there. And that's perfectly understandable. I I think he needs to be doing more, at least calling Netanyahu out a lot more in a stronger stance. But I also know that, again, this goes back to an earlier point that I want to underscore. You don't have the endowment. And so you have to pick and choose very carefully. That's not what people want to hear, but sometimes it's what you need to hear. So do you say no, don't come at all because of your stance or lack of a stance on Gaza? Or do you say, okay, come and let's have a conversation about that? And I lean on the side of Morehouse. Let him come. Well, not that I don't think they're going to cancel it anyway, but he should come. And young people in particular need to hold his feet to the fire and ask him the tough questions. Get him on record. This would be the optimal time, right? And the commencement is supposed to be about a significant milestone that you've reached, and your family and friends, and you want to celebrate and you don't want the distractions. I get that. But also, since you have the powers that be at Morehouse have decided to invite Biden during a polarizing time, it's also a very good time to engage him with his stance on Gaza, his stance on a whole lot of things that people may be unhappy about, and ask him, what are your plans if you win a second term? Now, some people, he's not going to be able to change their mind at all, because they are, for some reason, and I notice this especially with young African American men, not all, but more than a few, seem to really like Donald Trump, and they talk about his swag. What swag? Guy doesn't have any money. He's borrowing money and has been for quite some time. That 200 million that he was left, and then he took his other family members' inheritance as well. He's gone through that. So he just has friends in high places who are like to loan him money. And I just think that it's too easy for young, not all again, but too many young African American males are caught up with this quote unquote swag. He doesn't have any swag. Understand that he's running for president to pardon himself, because that's the only way he's going to get pardoned. Understand that. Understand that this generational wealth that you speak of, that's going to be hard to get under any administration, okay? And for the men who have said they're focused on generational wealth and they're in their 40s and 50s, I would say, okay, well, what have you been doing for the past 25 or 30 years? I mean, when did generational wealth become a big thing with you? And if you are focused on generational wealth like that, do you honestly think somebody who, even when the Central Park Five were proven to be innocent of the crime, go back and look it up, from 1981, he still was on record as saying they needed to be in prison? Do you approve of someone like that? Because that could be you. I think too often you get caught up in the bling bling and you don't understand the emperor doesn't have any clothes in this particular case. And the other part of it too, not only does he not have any clothes, what are your real expectations? Pragmatically speaking, what do you expect a president to do? If you're not voting at the local and state level, why do you think the national level matters? If you're not getting out there and voting at those two levels where you can see an impact on your livelihood, um, and so forth, why do you think that the national level matters? It doesn't, because it's national, right? You need to be concerned about who your next state attorney general is. You should be concerned about who your mayor is. You should be concerned about the folks sitting on city council who are not doing the right thing, and raising your taxes, property taxes in particular, and you can't see any changes, positive changes in the educational system, on the local and state level, but yet still your property taxes are going up. So young people, open your eyes, open your eyes. And Morehouse, you all open your eyes down there too. I would say go ahead and don't make too much of a stink about him coming. But when he comes, ask him directly. How do you feel about this? And why, not how do you feel about this? Why haven't you taken a stronger stance against it? Now, yes, I know that people will try to prevent you from asking questions. They'll bring him in, let him give a 15-minute rah-rah speech, and then leave. So I think that's also on the minds of many as well. If he comes, we're not actually going to be able to engage and have conversations with him. And you're right about that. That may in fact be the problem. If he wants to get your vote, and maybe at the end of the day he won't get it anyway, but what he should do, or is stick around long enough to do a impromptu town hall and have a conversation with you all. You all might not like what he has to say at the end of the day, but nonetheless, it's the start of a conversation. And you have the opportunity to continue to hold his feet to the fire, by, bringing it up very vocally to your representatives and telling them, they need to really push the Biden administration to adopt a tougher stance with the prime minister, and also with what's going on in Gaza. They need to do that. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's like almost 19 minutes. I want to congratulate, it's an early congratulations, not just to Morehouse graduates, but to all graduates this time of year. It's a huge milestone. Wish all of you the best in whatever you decide to do. You have a real opportunity to change things. You can forget about my generation and maybe the generation behind me, because they're not going to do anything but sit down and complain. So I hope that your generation will do a lot more, be a lot more active, and be the change that you want to see in DC. I know it can be very frustrating. I've been very frustrated with a whole lot of things, but as it pertains to no movement in DC, and in writing letters and so forth, and trying to talk to representatives who won't take your calls, but every time their term is up, then they come around and say, oh, well, I need your vote. We're past that as well. But anyway, that's basically what I had to say to Morehouse, is to remember the line that you walk is very fine. And because of your endowment situation, You just don't enjoy the luxury of being too vocal. You can be vocal, but I've seen administrations go ahead and do things that many students and faculty don't like, right? I'm not saying that this will be the case here because I don't know that particular institution. I'm just giving commentary based on what I see and read only. And would just say again, it's a fine line there. So if he comes, maybe you'll get the opportunity to ask the tough questions and get him on record. And maybe you won't. And then maybe that will be your answer too, as well. So that is all I have. It's long-winded again. Okay. Until next time. Peace.